Hi, welcome to Math with Karen. Today we're talking decimals. Decimals are fractions written in a different way. So if your child or you are really confused about really what are decimals and why do we use decimals, it is just another way to write fractions. It is when you have a whole and you make it into pieces, or you have a set and it is parts of the set. So we are aware of these. Our students have seen these as a hundreds flat and our tens rods, and then we have our one squares. We're going to change our look of that. So instead of looking at this as 100 pieces, we're going to look at this as one. So let's pretend like this is a cake, and it's a very large cake, because we are going to cut our cake into 100 pieces. So this is a whole, and then when we cut it into pieces, then we are going to represent them as the rods and the squares. So these rods are actually a tenth of the whole because there are 10 rods inside of the whole. So if I was going to write this as a fraction, I would say this is 1 3/10. Now, we're going to take that fraction and we're going to write it as a decimal. So we've talked about fractions, and every year that your child has been in school, they have talked about place value charts. Every place has a name. A digit goes into the place and it gets its value. So if there was a 3 in the tens place, that would be 3 tens, which is equivalent to 30, right? So we're going to take that we've learned, and we're going to take the fractions that we've learned, and we're going to put them together and create decimals. So in our place value chart so far, we have done, in the fourth grade, we've done ones, tens, and hundreds, and that's a period. That's the ones period. And then we have done thousands, 10,000s, and 100,000s. That is called the thousands period. There are 3 digits in each period. So that being said, now we're going to introduce 2 new places. So our 2 new places are actually less than 1. So instead of going up the place value chart, now we're going to start going down the place value chart. So we have our ones place here, and we represent that we are no longer in the ones, the wholes, with a decimal. Now, a lot of times they call these points, but in the math terminology, this is called a decimal. And then you have the new place of the tenths, which we're talking about our 10 columns, right? Our 10 rods here, our tenths place, and then our hundredths place, which would be each one of these little squares inside of the whole. So when we go to write 1 3/10, what we would say is we would write our one whole in the ones box. And because we have 3/10, we would have a decimal because it's less than one whole, these right here. And we have 3/10. Now in the fourth grade, we teach them how to say decimals as well. You actually say 1 and, because we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about a whole amount and a part. Not a whole and a whole, but a whole and a part. That's when we use the word and, because it's 2 different things. I always say it's kind of like having apples and oranges. You don't say apples, oranges. You would say apples and oranges, because they're 2 different things that you're putting together. So we're putting a whole amount with a partial amount, a partial of a whole. Okay, so when you say a decimal, you say 1 and, the decimal is the word and then you say the digit that's here, 3, and whatever place it's in. So 1 3/10. So that's how we would say that. So we have 1 3/10 as a mixed number, and we're going to turn that into a decimal, which is going to be 1 3/10. All right. So what we have covered today is how do we say decimals, what are decimals, and our new places in the place value chart. In our next video, we will introduce more of the hundredths, how to say that decimal, and going back and forth from decimals to fractions. So I'll see you there.